What's going on, guys? So I am at the Van Lee Beacon today, about to install something very cool. I got this in a while back and I was actually saving it for our new RV, but I figured why not throw it on the Van Lee Beacon because I need to know what the tire pressure is on that as well. This is the new TireMinder wireless system. This is called the TPMS i10-6. This one came with 6 sensors, but they provided me with additional sensors, so I want to give them a big shout out for supporting the channel and doing that. TireMinder makes a really good system. I've shown other TPMS systems in the past, but I can honestly tell you I keep coming back to TireMinder because it's just a very reliable system. The system that I've had in my truck is about 3 years old, and it works like it did the day I got it. It just works really, really well, especially considering the inside of my truck can get well over 100 degrees down here in the South Texas sun. This is cool. It comes with the new color monitor, which is different because the one that I have does not have a color monitor. It comes with a signal booster, which is essentially ran underneath the RV. Something I was told about as a pro tip is make sure that the antennas are pointed down if you're going to be installing it. And then this one comes with 6 sensors, but again, they sourced me with an additional 6 sensors so we can get it connected to the truck and the trailer. If you have a TireMinder system, please leave a comment below. Let me know what your experience has been with them because I've absolutely loved the system, so I'd like to know how you guys feel about it as well. Honestly, anything that you all buy that you've referenced from a video I've made, I'd love to know what your feedback is on it because quite frankly, I only like to work with high quality products. I don't consider myself a channel that just takes in anything. I work with companies that build great products and I want to bring those products to you, but I also want to know that they're working out for you. So please leave a comment if things I've suggested have worked out for you, but more importantly, if they haven't. Anyways, let's open this thing up and take a look inside. Okay, so here it is. Once you open the box, this is what you're going to get. First of all, you're going to get your color display. It's about the same size as the previous version, but what I like about it is it's not quite as tall. So the one that I have in my truck is about like that, and this one's significantly shorter. It is a little bit wider though, so it's probably a ½ inch wider than the one that I currently have. It's got a little antenna off the side. The one that I currently have has the antenna kind of molded into it off of the top. The buttons are pretty much the same though, just the 3 main buttons. You have your charging port. What's nice about this one is that it actually gives you your tire pressure on all your tires simultaneously, and then it switches to your trailer every 6 seconds, I believe. So you can see your truck, all the tires, and then your trailer, all the tires, every 6 seconds. So that's really cool. It toggles back and forth between them. And you can set it up between 2 different trailers as well. So you have an A trailer and you have a B trailer. Above it here you have your sensors themselves. These are what actually screw on to the valve stems of your wheels. It came with 6. The ones that are right here are the 6, and then I put these additional 6 in that they provided as well. So I have enough for all the tires on the truck plus the spare, and all the tires on the trailer plus the spare, and then I'll have a few extras, which is really nice. You get your instructions and your warranty card. This is a very simple system to set up, and you know, it's easy enough just to explain to you. All I have to do is take the batteries out, you unscrew the cap off of the top here, right there. It's actually really easy to unscrew. You take a battery, slide it in, screw it onto your valve stem, tighten it with a little lock washer that's included, or a lock nut that's included right here, and a little tool. So first of all, you're going to put the nut onto your valve stem, and then you're going to tighten it almost all the way down, but not tight. You then take your sensor, you screw your sensor onto your valve stem to where it's snug, and then you take this little tool they have here to back that nut back to tighten up against the sensor so it doesn't come loose. That's pretty much it. And then once you add a sensor, you simply go into learning mode on your display, put it next to each tire as you're putting the actual sensor onto it, and it's going to recognize the tire. And then you want to set all of your thresholds, essentially your baseline pressure, what it should be at, and then how far above or below it needs to go to indicate that you have some type of a problem, whether it's a rapid air leak or whether you're losing air slowly. Basically, you want to set your parameters of how it alerts you. This entire system takes about 30 minutes to install. It takes much less if you've done it before and you kind of understand the entire process, but the reality of it is, you know, a lot of people, if you've never messed with this before, it's going to take you about 30 minutes to put on completely. If you have a dually, of course, getting to your inner dually valve stem is a little bit more difficult, so that adds a little bit of time, but overall, should take you no more than 30 minutes to get everything put in place. Here's a pro tip. Take these little nuts and put them on the valve stems before you even get started. Before you try to do anything else, go ahead and thread these all the way down. That way you don't forget. And then when it comes time to program each sensor with this remote or with this display, you already have this part in place and all you're doing is screwing these sensors into place to get them to synchronize. But we're going to go ahead and get these installed and see how they work. Be right back. Okay, so another piece of equipment that came in the box that I forgot to mention is this Rhino Booster. So this is designed to be installed to help reach RVs that are longer in length, that essentially the controller here may not be able to reach the sensors. You use this to essentially boost the signal so you have the ability to reach the controller, which will be up front inside of your tow vehicle. So the first thing I want to do is actually install this right here. And I'm going to do that by clipping it to one of the side marker lights on the RV itself. All right, so I want to try to make this as simple as possible. And I know, if you watch my channel, I may not do what I would consider to be the most drug out installation videos on some things, because I think most people want to know realistically how long it's going to take, or perhaps some even best practices on what you can do. So the first thing is, getting this in place. And I don't natively have access to 12 volts outside of this RV, and I don't want to drill a hole under the front generator compartment there to run a wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap into one of my side marker lights. This thing, I can't imagine draws much power because it uses some very, very thin gauge wires. But what I'm going to do is tap into this wire right here, which goes to this side marker light. And I'll just make a small little hole in the wire that I can clip these to, and then I'm going to wrap it in electrical tape to prevent any type of moisture or anything from getting in. That way, if you ever want to remove it, you just unclip it and just wrap up the wire a little bit. But I think that's going to be the best way. And then I'll secure this somewhere underneath here. So first step I need to do is get access to the wire right there, pull the two leads out, check which one is positive, which one's negative, which is very important for DC power. And then I will connect this to it. All right, so I have the wires clipped to it for the booster. Just going to turn it on real quick and see what happens. And there's your power. So once I have the sensors put on the valve stems, I should be able to reach the actual truck. Just need to mount this now. So I have the booster all wired up and I have it all electrical taped. All right, guys, so I kind of subscribe to the simpler is better mentality as long as you're not compromising safety. And what I did was I took the slack, I routed it up underneath all the existing stuff that's kind of here underneath this area of the fifth wheel. I zip tied it to anything I could, and then I put the actual booster right here on the bracket for the auto leveling leg. Right there if you can't see it. So antennas are pointed down, which is really nice. And this should work really well because one of the challenges people have with fifth wheels is you don't have quite as many access points to get wiring from the inside to the outside as you might in something like a motorhome that has kind of an open chassis underneath. Because these are all pretty much sealed up underneath, you have to take advantage of areas that you have available to you. So we have the booster mounted and connected. It's connected again to my clearance light on the side. Whenever we have the lights on, which is every time I tow, the booster should be able to boost the signal from the back wheels to the front of the truck. All right, so now we're on to the sensor portion of all this, and I've got the batteries unpacked and I got the caps off of the sensors. They're just little plastic caps that screw on. And I'm simply going to take the battery and slide them into the sensors. That's really all I'm doing at this point. But there you go, got the sensors in, just have to put the caps back on. Then we're going to move over to the tires and go ahead and get these installed on the valve stems. Okay, so I'm back here at the tires. The first thing I've done is I took the cap off and I put these little lock nuts on. They simply thread all the way on. I thread them all the way down. I don't tighten them at all because that is what you're going to back off against the sensor to keep it in place so it doesn't come off. They give you a little nifty tool for that. The first thing I need to do now is put the controller in learning mode. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to hold the two outer buttons down right here, and then it will switch from M to L. So right now this says L right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of difficult to see. So right up front, I can view 10 tires on this first screen. So typically, again, this system would toggle every 6 seconds between your truck and your trailer. But the way I figure I can do this is I can actually do all my tires right here and just make that my front tire and that my rear tire on the trailer. So I have the front tires of the truck, then the dually tires of the truck, and then the 4 tires on the trailer, all on one screen. So it's currently in learning mode. There's an L right here instead of an M, simply by holding down the two arrows together for about 5 seconds. Now, as I put a sensor on, it's automatically going to recognize it here. So because I want the inner tire right here to be the back tire on the trailer, I'm going to go ahead and screw a sensor on after I select that one right there. You'll hear a beep in a second. Okay, so I've screwed both the front and the rear tires on the curb side. I just need to go to the road side and do the same over there. Now, this is where this little nut comes in handy. Just going to back it up to the sensor, take your little tool here, and then tighten it up against your sensor. And all that does is prevents that from coming off. This has steel valve stems as well because this is a higher rated tire and rim, and that is definitely recommended if you're going to be putting a TPMS system on. Quite frankly, these are so light and small, I don't think it really matters, but you're definitely going to want to check. If you have, you know, really cheap, flimsy rubber valve stems here, you might want to upgrade to something rigid. We're going to tighten this one down now too. Then we're going to move to the other side. Okay, once again, I'm going to take the valve stem caps off. And if you see these caps on, generally means they nitrogen filled your tires from the factory or in the aftermarket, and they put these caps on to show that. So first, take the valve stem caps off. Take your little lock nuts right here, thread them on. Do the same back here. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now I'm onto the truck, and I need to program the control to recognize these new sensors. So, still in learning mode. Dually tires are always a little bit tricky, so I'm going to do this one off camera. But basically, I'm going to reach under there, unscrew it, put the one on, and then reach onto the inside and screw that one on. Okay, so I quickly grabbed the TM77 that I've been using in the truck, and it's a very cool looking little system. It looks very kind of ergonomic, kind of more modern than the i10 that I replaced it with, but again, this one has to scroll through each tire individually. Now, this does have a much longer battery life, so I believe the battery life on this one is actually a couple of days. Whereas the i10, I think it's like 10 hours, something like that. But it's going to stay plugged in my truck, so I'm not too worried about the battery life on it, to be honest. The main reason I use the battery on this specific setup is to program it to the different sensors when I add them. So, not that big of a deal for me. The benefit of seeing all my sensors together is actually a big perk. Now, I've gotten out of learning mode, and I'm back in monitoring mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to adjust some of the other settings on it. So I'm going to hold down the middle button right here. This is where you would change it from bar to PSI. This is where you would change it from Celsius to Fahrenheit. This is where you would set your baseline. So actually, I'm going to set the baseline on my front tires at 85 PSI. And then the back ones at 70 PSI. And then the trailer, I'm going to set it at 110 PSI. Just like that. Hold the button down. There we go. So now my baseline is where the tire pressure should be, or at the level that I want to be aware of if anything fluctuates too high or too low from. Now, it's going to give you all sorts of different indicators. It's going to let you know if the pressure gets too high. It's going to let you know if the temperature gets too high. It's going to let you know if the pressure gets too low, if it's a slow leak, or if it's a rapid loss of air, which generally indicates you have a blowout. Any of those should trigger this, even if your baselines aren't perfect. So a rapid loss of air is probably the single more important thing to watch, because that means that you've probably had a blowout. You know, your tires getting too hot are definitely something you want to keep an eye on, but at the same time, depending on the different road conditions you might be in, that could vary. And if you're driving from a very hot environment to a very cold environment, let's say you're driving on a really hot summer road, then all of a sudden you hit the mountains and you start going really high and it gets really cool very quickly, or a cold front comes rushing in, it can cause the road temperature to drop, therefore your tire temperature to drop, and you may get some what I would consider to be false indications on here, even though they're not entirely false. It's just how the air in your tire is responding to its environment around them. But this is just really good to keep a good close eye on what's going on with your tires, and more importantly, to let you know if you have a flat. I think that's the single most important aspect of it. One really nice aspect of this as well is that you can connect it to multiple trailers. Really cool stuff. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll put a link to this in the description of this video if this is something you might be interested in. The good folks over at eTrailer carry this, and I definitely recommend getting it from them because they are absolutely great in terms of customer service and everything else that they can offer you. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up. We'll talk to you again very soon.